a bit about Whitehead before I get into some of the stuff that they actually wanted me to talk about. We're a family-run business, have been for the last 100 years. I'm the fourth generation, and we focus mainly in the Western Cape. We go out of the Western Cape if a client requests that, but we don't specifically look for work outside of the Western Cape. One of our values, some of our core values that we really try and instill into the business, and this is sort of a testament to having been doing this for 100 years and values been passed down through generations, is staff retention. Some of our staff have been with us for 40 years. We've got staff members that have been with us for 2 years. Dina's one of them. 1 year, 2 years. So yeah, we try and keep staff retention. The only way to do that is, by being kind and thoughtful and making a really great workplace for them to work in. Short of that, and obviously paying them well, properly. Strong beliefs that we have as a business, obviously trying to sell ourselves into the industry, is customer focus, quality over quantity. It's important to us. We'd rather have a quality product over a quantity product. I think this is probably testament to that as well. Having a really good quality product rather than 100 million rand turnover. I'd rather do a 20 million rand turnover and do it properly. And a lot of our ethics in material use, which is something fairly new to us over the last 10, 15 years, we're trying to use more and more ethical materials in what we do. So water-based paints over solvent-based paints. We try not have solvents on our painting sites where possible, that kind of vibe. So we have an ethical material use, and that's quite a big belief of ours. One of our other values is establishing and maintaining a good supply chain. So our suppliers are valued partners of ours, the bigger companies, Plascon, Midas, Dulux, Sabre, whichever of the bigger paint companies. We try and keep a strong relationship with them. Otherwise, if we don't have a relationship with them, we're never going to get the right prices. We're never going to get the work. So, and then communication is a big belief of ours. Communication within the company. So discussions amongst ourselves within the company that are open and honest. Discussions with customers that are open and honest. Excuse the language, no bullshit. It is what it is. If we mess up, we mess up. If they mess up, we tell them. If we mess up, they tell us, and we accept it and we fix it. No BS communication is what we believe in. And then a lot of communication with our value add suppliers, as I call them, so our subcontractors. So we have teams that work for us that are little businesses of their own. They all run through work week. And we try and assist them to become better business people through assisting them to build their business. So again, a lot of open communication with those kind of people. And then promoting teamwork within the company to allow our staff to be individuals and express themselves and also learn. So we've got a lot of knowledge to pass over. And the more they learn, the better for us and the better for the company. So those are just some of the values that Whiteheads over the years have sort of really worked on. So what I was asked to speak about this evening was, I think, 4 things. Thought they were going to be there, but... Yeah. Mugshot, eh? Okay, so the common mistakes of subcontractors. Us being a subcontractor, obviously, that's what I need to speak about. And I would say that the most common mistake that a subcontractor or a supplier might make on a construction site is undervaluing your input, our input, your input, and the effect that that has if you don't perform or you do perform. And that is something that you've got to really value. If you undervalue that, there's no reason for you to perform. So you've got to really value that process and make sure that whatever you're putting into the project is the best of your ability. So don't undervalue that, because if you don't perform, it's going to affect everybody. And a close second is, I discussed it earlier, is communication. Communication between ourselves, the main contractor, the developers, open communication. As again, no bullshit communication. Yeah? Just clear, concise, open communication is key to anybody's success. And then the third thing, which we see a lot in the industry because we're always at the back end of the development, is lack of supervision. So if there's a lack of supervision from our side, our job's never going to work. If there's lack of supervision from the trades in front of us, we see it all the time where things don't happen properly because the guys are brought to site in a bucky, they're unloaded, go and do the job, and there's no supervision, and the guys are kind of doing their thing around the project, and we get to paint it, which is a nightmare. So that is the third, and probably one of the most important things is supervision on site to make sure that what you've been asked to do gets done. Somebody's sending me an email, sorry. The second thing was what do costings and quoting correctly look like? So costings for tendering, we've all got our own system of how to tender a project or put the costings together. And so from our side, we've got a huge database of information from all the years that we've been doing this. And those are actual costs on projects. And we review those annually, and we see where labor is, where material is, where overhead costs are. We have a look at all that. And we use that to predict our labor and material costs when we need to do the pricing. So we can say that labor is going to be 40% or material is going to be 60% or vice versa, depending on the products being used. And we use that in our tendering process and our pricing process. From the labor side, we compare site outputs to the estimated pricing that we're putting in. We do a comparison between what the guys are actually doing on site and what we think they should be doing, and we come up with a compromise of how we submit a tender price. And the one thing we never do when it comes to pricing is we have a threshold. So we all say we should be painting at 100 Rand a square meter. I wish. But we would never go below, let's say, 80 Rand a square meter, where we know that threshold is it. If anything below that, we might as well go sit on the beach. And that is, I think, in a pricing environment, a lot of people make that mistake. So we'll do it for 70 bucks. And we'll do it for 70 bucks. But somewhere down the line, you're going to come short because you're going to have labor costs, you're going to have material costs, you're going to have supervision costs, you're going to have all those costs, and you're not going to make the money. So when it comes to tendering, you've got to set yourself a threshold. And that is where you stop. If somebody wants to do it for less, I'd rather sit on the beach, quite honestly. And I know it's hard to do because you need the turnover, but why are you going to go into a project that you're going to lose money? It doesn't make sense. So that's on the labor side. We never go below a threshold of our labor allowable ever. From a materials perspective, when it comes to pricing, the one thing that we find, and I don't know if you guys have the same thing in the industry, our suppliers, we keep on them all the time about pricing. Because our suppliers, for whatever known reason, they just change the prices when they feel like. I mean, we never change our pricing until it's like a year later or 18 months, and then we kind of get a small increase because of escalation or so on. But our suppliers, will come along and say, there's a price increase in 3 months' time. You've got to keep on your suppliers when it comes to that. And we're very strict with that. So we say to them, you give us a price once a year, that's it. End of story. And they all say yes. Funny enough, they all say yes. So it's not a case of, every 3 months or every 6 months you're going to get a price increase. When it comes to materials and pricing, the other thing we do is we keep testing materials on site. When I say testing materials, we're testing materials for spread rates. So we know we should be getting 10 square meters a litre out of an acrylic. If we start getting 8, 7, 6, 9, there's a problem. It's going to cost us money. So we keep testing the materials from our main suppliers to say that we are consistently getting the right outputs. And that's important for us to know from a tendering perspective. And then also from a tendering and pricing perspective, if we find that we're tendering on something that has a specification that is not what we think it should be, we do what I'd like to call value engineering for the client. We'll say, this product, you don't really need to use their we can use a slightly less expensive product there, but put some money into this product. And we change up the client's specification to suit them. And I think that helps the clients put the right products in the right places rather than willy-nilly just putting expensive products everywhere, or the cheap products where you should have an expensive product. And so that's not really a pricing thing, but it's an option that we discuss with clients when we have the opportunity. Another thing that we do from a pricing perspective, we always use the same system. We never price something outside of the system that we have. We have a certain pricing method. We stick to that pricing method, and it's very open and transparent to the whole office how something gets priced. If I fall over tomorrow and I'm not here, somebody can open my laptop, go online and say, right, Colin's priced this job, it's that much. That's all and we keep the same system, so it's always open and transparent. And then the other thing we do from pricing perspective is our raw costs. When I say our raw costs, our labor costs, our material costs, you've got to know what that must be when you're pricing the job. If you don't know what that is, you don't know if you're going to make money or lose money. And those raw costs are static. We never change those raw costs, whatever they are. The only thing we play with when it comes to winning or losing a tender is our P&G, which is site specific, or our markup or overhead. You know, if we really want the job, we'll put less markup on. If we think we don't 100% want the job, we'll put our normal markup on. But we never play with our raw cost. That our costs are our costs. If somebody wants to do it for less than our cost, so be it. Yeah. I think the third thing was why site data is your best tool for growth. So a little bit of a difficult one to talk about, but I think the three obvious things that came up in my mind, they're not really site data, but more observations that happen on sites that are often overlooked, which you get data from, is the site environment. If a site that we walk onto to go and do is a messy site, we know we're not going to make money. And that's a given. We walk onto a construction site that's got scaffold planks piled on top of each other and rubble everywhere, and it's like, this is going to be a nightmare. We walk onto a clean site, it's fantastic. We know the well-run site, we're going to manage, and we're going to actually make money. Site accommodation for your staff or our staff is so important when you're working on a big site, that you've got proper stores, proper changing, and proper eating rest areas for your staff. We don't always have it because it's not always available, and we try and make the best possible, because if your guys on site are not happy, they're not going to give you what you need out of them. Okay, and this is all coming back to, I'll get to it. What about site? It's about site data, and then staff management. If you have management and staff that are bullies or not kind, or they're full of nonsense, your staff are never going to be able to achieve what you want them to achieve. And as I said, this might not relate to data such as outputs and material usage, but adversely affects that. So your labor output, your material usage is all related to how your guys feel on site and how do they actually want to come to work? They want to come to work and actually do a good job of work. And that's going to create a negative or positive feedback to the data that you're getting from site. So the data that you're getting from site is obviously related to the information you're getting in the office about how you're going to grow the company. So if the data is coming back negative and your site management are giving you all this negative feedback, how are you supposed to grow the business? I mean, you're not going to be able to grow your business if you're running at a loss within the company. It's never going to happen. You need profits to grow the business. So monitoring outputs and material usage is also key to accurate costing, which allows the detection of potential losses. So you've got to make sure you know what your costs are to get growth in the business. If you don't know what your costs are, you're never going to grow in the business because you're not sure if you're going to make profits or not. It's no good at the end of every month and go and say, oh, shit, I made a loss this month. Well, why? Why did you make a loss? So one of the main factors for us, and the big change since we've been using Workweek, is We know every fortnight exactly what our labor cost is, every single fortnight. Throughout the company, we know our labor has cost us X. We know our materials cost us X because we have a system in place where we have a reporting system where we report on every single project, every fortnight, labor costs, material costs, revenue received, health and safety costs, and we have a one-liner. You can ask Dina. We're fastidious about giving him those costs. And we look through it, and it's either green, yellow, or red. If it's red, somebody's going to get crapped on. If it's orange, it's okay. If it's green, it's thumbs up. So, from a costing perspective, you've got to know where you are, what you're doing. Otherwise, you're never going to get growth in your business. So it's important that you understand that. And the way you put those systems together needs to be as simple as possible. Doesn't have to be complicated. We're all in the industry. We've got labor costs, we've got material costs, and we've got overheads. It's not rocket science. And with everybody on board looking at those costs, so we have across the board, we have all those reports going to our QSs, to our contracts managers, to the office, and everybody's looking at those costs. So it's all transparent. Everybody knows this job's making money, this job's not making money. Why? And we can talk about it. So it's very open and transparent. Where was I? The last one, which winning tenders consistently. Well, firstly, I'm not sure tendering is ever consistent. I don't know if you guys know that as well, but I can't think you can put tendering and consistency with this in the same sentence. But it's a nice thought if it was consistent, but it's never consistent. You know that you always, when the tenders are like this, right? However, for you to be as consistent as possible, when we can be consistent in our approach to tenders and therefore create comfort for the clients that we have a system so they can see that we know what we're doing. So we're quite consistent in our tenders. Process is the same. We use the same system. We use the same cover page. We use the same terminology so clients can see that we're using the same system. So hopefully they can see that we know what we're doing. I'm looking at Stefan. The front face of a tender for consistency is important. If you have a different face to your tender every time you send one in, people are going to say, well, why? If it's consistently same logo, the same format, that's consistent, and people actually understand that. And then again, the consistency of the details within the tender. Don't make it complicated. A tender doesn't have to be complicated. It's a bill of quantities mostly in our instance, or a description of the work and a price and any conditions. We also try not make too many changes to a tender. So if we see a tender and they say you can send an alternative, very often we don't, because we price what they've requested, unless we can see there's something glaringly obviously that's not going to work. We will then submit an alternative. But we always submit a tender for what they've asked and then an alternative. And that's important. If you submit just an alternative, a lot of the times the client will just push that aside because that's not what they asked for. And in our industry, there's always going to be uncertainty in the tender market. As new contractors arrive in Cape Town, they'll come down and they'll start tendering, and they don't really understand how it works here in Cape Town. They're trying to find their feet. So yes, the consistency in the tender is always going to be like this, because there's going to be new people coming into your market or our market. But if you know your limits and you have accurate costings, you know what your threshold is, and you've got to stick to that threshold. Sometimes it hurts. We've been in situations where we've had very little work, and we just say, gosh, what are we going to do? And we just stick to your guns. You got to stick to your thresholds. And if you don't stick to your thresholds, you are going to come unstuck. And we've been around for 100 years, and we've done that for years and years and years. And sometimes you're running on zero work. But if you're going to do zero work, I'd rather do no work than run at a loss and pay somebody to be on site, or pay somebody for the privilege of painting a building for them. And then I think the last thing when it comes to winning tenders consistently is communication with the clients you're tendering to is important. Show interest in the tender, and always ask for results. We always ask for results, because if you don't know the results of the tender you're submitting, how do you know what the opposition is doing? Somebody says, no, you didn't get the job. Well, okay, why? Was it price? Was it you don't like me? Was it whatever? Yeah. Get a response out of, you've put the effort in to put the tender in, give you a result, even if it's a negative result, get the result. So you can actually get a database of information of how you're doing in the industry. Otherwise, you're never going to learn by what you're doing. Yeah, so as I said, you're going to learn from the industry and you're going to learn about your opposition. So you'll see consistency that ABC painters are coming in underneath everybody coming in, and they're going to have all this work, and at some point they can't do it all. So you're going to learn more about your opposition. And I think that's all I've got for you guys about tenders.